In the cold of March 1991, when spring hesitantly began to emerge from the winter chill in South Korea's Gyeongsang-buk-do province, the small town of Daegu was gripped by despair. 5 young boys, as they often did, went out to play. Their cheerful laughter, joyous shouts, and carefree games vanished in an instant, leaving behind only a ringing silence and a chilling question. Where had the frog boys disappeared to? Picture this: modest, squat houses nestled amongst the vibrant green of rice paddies, narrow streets where the boys kicked a ball, and the air filled with the spicy aroma of kimchi and the scent of barely blooming flowers. The city of Daegu, like many Korean cities, was full of life, but that life was cruelly interrupted. On Friday, the 26th of March, right in the middle of the school holidays, the 5 boys, as was their custom, went to the mountains overlooking the city after school. Palgongsan Mountain, a place known for its scenic trails, crystal-clear streams, and, of course, an abundance of frogs, which the children loved to catch. They were the most ordinary boys, bound by an unbreakable friendship, shared interests, and an unquenchable thirst for adventure. Sadly, the names of these boys are now forever linked to tragedy. Kim Jong-sik, 11 years old, was the oldest of the 5. He always aspired to lead, readily embracing responsibility. His friend, Kim Yong-gyu, who was 10 years old, was the embodiment of joy, a soul whose energy enlivened any gathering. Park Chan-in, also 10 years old, was quiet and reserved, yet his devotion to his friends knew no bounds. Cho Ho-won, 11 years old, possessed a sharp mind and remarkable wit, along with a distinct fearlessness. And finally, Kim Tae-gyu, 9 years old, the youngest of the group, was brimming with boundless energy and curiosity. On that fateful day, fate brought them together. The boys decided to spend the day enthusiastically catching frogs by the river, planning to return home together afterward. They promised their parents they would be careful, not stray too far, and definitely be back before dark. Those words became the last they would speak in their homes. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in crimson hues, and the parents started to worry, it became clear that something had gone amiss. The children never returned home. The worry, which had begun as a barely perceptible unease, quickly escalated into full-blown panic. Night enveloped the city, shrouding it in impenetrable darkness. And with it came fear and despair. Parents, neighbors, friends, everyone touched by the tragedy, united in a desperate search for the missing boys. When the following morning arrived, and it became absolutely clear the children hadn't returned home to sleep, a massive search operation began. Hundreds of volunteers, uniformed soldiers, and police officers all mobilized to find the young boys. Mount Palgongsan, majestic and mysterious, became the arena for a desperate battle for life, for fragile hope. The search continued without pause, day and night, under torrential rain and biting wind. Exhausted and weary, the rescuers combed every corner of the mountain, scrutinized the gloomy gorges, explored the dark caves, and looked under every stone, hoping to discover any trace. Flyers with the boys' photographs were posted everywhere, their faces full of carefree childhood joy, a poignant reminder of life's fragility. Messages relentlessly broadcast across radio and television offered a glimmer of hope in the hearts of desperate people. The entire nation held its breath, watching the unfolding drama. Hearts ached with empathy for the parents, whose hopes stubbornly flickered Months of searching stretched on, an endless procession, but the mountain continued to guard its grim secret. Not a single clue, not the slightest trace. Exhausted from futile efforts, investigators considered every possible scenario: abduction, a tragic accident, brutal murder. But none could be confirmed. No evidence shed light on this chilling mystery. The case of the missing Frog Boys became one of the most notorious and tragic episodes in South Korean history. The media covered every step of the search, relentlessly pressuring the police, demanding immediate results. Public opinion remained divided. Some, filled with belief in a miracle, continued to hope for the children's happy return. Others, tormented by dark forebodings, feared the worst, but could not accept the thought that the truth would forever remain buried deep within the mountains. Years passed, carrying away the remnants of hope. The city of Daegu plunged into mourning. Broken-hearted parents, unwilling to reconcile themselves to the irreparable loss, continued to hold on to hope. They could not believe that their sons had simply vanished, dissolved into thin air, without leaving even a ghostly shadow. Each day, they came to the place where they had last seen their boys, hung up photographs with their smiling faces, and haunted the doorsteps of psychics, believing that at least one of them could provide some sort of clue. Time went by, and the case of the missing children turned into an open wound on the body of Korean society, a symbol of a national tragedy. It embodied not only the unbearable grief of the parents, but also the glaring weakness of the law enforcement system, its inability to unravel this tangle of mysteries. 11 years passed before the truth, so terrible and cruel, finally burst forth. On the 26th of September, 2002, during one of those autumnal days when the sun's warmth had begun to fade, an event occurred that forever altered the lives of many. On the slopes of Mount Palgongsan, not far from the last reported sighting of the boys, a group of concerned citizens searching for firewood stumbled upon a shocking discovery. They found the remains of 5 children. In a deep ravine, hidden beneath a layer of fallen leaves and earth, lay bones, decaying clothing, children's shoes, and withered school backpacks. All of this bore witness to a terrible tragedy, forever etched in the city's memory. This news resonated throughout South Korea like an exploding bomb. The grief of inconsolable parents who had nurtured hope for their son's return for years, and the growing public tension, it all spilled out with ferocious force. The nation froze in shock, overwhelmed by waves of anger and despair. A thorough investigation commenced immediately. Forensic scientists worked tirelessly at the scene, meticulously collecting the smallest pieces of evidence, carefully analyzing the remains and the tattered clothing. The clues, like fragile threads, slowly led to the solution, helping to identify the lost boys. DNA analysis confirmed the chilling truth. The remains belonged to the missing Frog Boys, whom the whole country had been searching for. But the most terrifying enigma hanging over the case remained unsolved: the cause of the children's deaths. The official version, presented based on autopsy results, stated death occurred as a result of hypothermia, and the boys apparently had gotten lost in the forest, becoming victims of a merciless winter. However, this version, voiced by the authorities, sparked a wave of outrage and spawned many questions and heated debates within society. Experts discovered blunt force trauma on the children's skulls. These terrible injuries made many doubt the official version of events and suggest that the boys had become victims of brutal violence. The investigation resumed, but time ruthlessly erased the evidence. After many years, finding the culprits seemed almost impossible. The criminals, if they even existed, had managed to cover all their tracks, leaving behind only darkness and an unsolved mystery. Despite the enormous public outcry and relentless pressure, the investigation, alas, yielded no expected results. The culprits were never found, and the case, steeped in pain and despair, was closed. Every detail of this horrifying story, from the dreadful discovery to the sorrowful closure of the investigation, sparked a veritable wave of outrage in society. The parents of the deceased children, their hearts shattered with grief, yet refusing to accept that the murderers remained unpunished, formed an organization. This organization, filled with determination and a belief in justice, tirelessly fought for the truth and demanded a new, thorough investigation. The case of the Frog Boys is still shrouded in mystery and remains one of the most enigmatic and tragic in the history of South Korea. This story serves as a reminder that truth can elude us, hidden behind the veil of time, and that even the most meticulous investigations sometimes fail to deliver the anticipated outcomes. Soon after the discovery of the remains, painstaking work began to identify the bodies. Grieving parents, their hearts broken, arrived at the scene of the tragedy to try and recognize their children. Imagine this unimaginable nightmare, standing before the remains of your sons, feeling that hope had extinguished forever, that all those long years of searching were in vain. It was incredibly difficult, unbearably painful. After identification, the funerals began. The entire country mourned alongside the heartbroken families. Thousands of people came to say goodbye to the boys, to pay their respects to their innocent lives, cut short by death. These funerals became a symbol of national tragedy, the embodiment of an unquenchable pain and irreplaceable loss that still resonates in people's hearts to this day. For many years after the tragic deaths of the children, known as the Frog Boys case, this story continued to stir the minds and hearts of people. Dozens of different theories were put forward, from a ridiculous accident to a monstrous conspiracy. Some believed the boys were victims of a terrible ritualistic murder, while others speculated about the involvement of the military or special agents. In 2006, the Frog Boys case was finally closed. Those responsible were never found, and the case itself was declared unsolved. This decision sparked a storm of outrage and disappointment throughout society. The parents of the deceased children, their hearts shattered by grief, continued to fight relentlessly for justice, demanding the reopening of the investigation and the punishment of those responsible. But despite all their desperate efforts, the truth remained buried alongside the boys' bodies in the dark depths of Mount Palgongsan. This case became a symbol not only of personal tragedy, but also of the deep, systemic problems faced by Korean society. Corruption, the incompetence of law enforcement, and sadly, the conservatism that often forces victims of violence to remain silent. Over the long years of investigation, countless theories were put forward, but none of them led to the long-awaited result. One theory suggested that the boys might have gotten lost in the mountains and frozen to death. This version seemed the most plausible, given the harsh weather conditions and the characteristics of the wilderness. The fierce wind, the freezing cold, the merciless rocks, Everything spoke in favor of this tragic hypothesis. However, as we remember, injuries were found on the children's skulls, which cast doubt on this version, forcing the search for answers in another direction. Another version, chilling to the bone, suggested that the boys were victims of brutal violence. Rumors circulated that they might have been murdered by someone local, hiding their secrets, or even by a stranger brought to this remote place by fate. But the absence of any evidence, not a single witness seeing anything, made this version incredibly shaky and improbable. The wildest, most unbelievable theory, exceeding all common sense, suggested the involvement of the military or even representatives of secret services. This version arose due to the proximity of a secret military base to the location where the remains were discovered. Rumors spread, multiplying and accruing horrifying details, yet no solid evidence to support this chilling theory was ever found. Personally, it's hard, simply impossible for me to imagine what the parents of these children went through. It's impossible to comprehend the depth of their grief, despair, and hopelessness as hope dwindled day by day, month by month, year by year. Losing a child is an unimaginable tragedy, but when this tragedy is shrouded in mystery and a lack of justice, it turns into a real hell. Try to imagine what it's like to wake up every day with the thought of a missing child, knowing that you will never know what happened to them. Endless searches, hope fading with each passing day, and finally, the discovery of the remains, confirming your worst fears. It's a nightmare impossible to imagine. Which one would wish upon no one? The tragedy of the Frog Boys became a symbol of pain, grief, and overwhelming powerlessness. It left an indelible scar on the hearts of people across South Korea. This story, which happened many years ago, serves as a reminder of the importance of protecting children, the need for an unceasing fight for justice, and the fact that truth can be incredibly bitter and painful. Over time, thanks to numerous documentaries, books, and even feature films, the case of the Frog Boys became firmly ingrained in Korean culture. It made society think about many important things: the role of parents, the problems of violence permeating Korean society, and the need for more effective work by law enforcement agencies. This story touched not only the hearts of parents, but also the souls of millions of Koreans, reminding them of the fragility of life, the importance of family ties, and the need to remember those who have left this world. It is striking that even after many years since the tragedy, the memory of the Frog Boys continues to live in people's hearts. This terrible story has left an indelible mark on history. A memorial was erected at the site where the remains were found, and thousands of visitors flocked there every year. This monument stands as a tribute to children who were taken too soon, a sorrowful reminder of a tragedy that seems destined never to be forgotten. Even now, after so many years, questions still plague the minds of those who remember. What truly happened to the boys on that fateful day when their lives were irrevocably altered? Who was responsible for their deaths, and why has the truth remained hidden from the world? There are still questions for which there are no answers. In closing, one single question lingers. What can we learn from this tragic story? We must remember that the path to justice is never easy, and the struggle for truth can endure for many years, causing suffering. We must remember the unwavering importance of family, the necessity of caring for our children, protecting them from harm. And we must remember that the memory of those lost must live forever, as eternal as the pain and sorrow for them. And of course, we are obligated to remember that even after many years have passed since that terrible tragedy, it is vital to continue seeking answers. This is the only way to ease even a little the unbearable pain of loss, so that the memory of the fallen remains bright. We must do everything possible to ensure that such a story never repeats itself, so that this pain does not touch new hearts, so that the future is free from the suffering that fateful date brought with it.